Spoken here with your host and the maestro Eddie C. McLeod. It's me, y'all.
Welcome once again to Truth Spoken Here. My guest for today is a young lady that I met a few weeks ago at a poetry event that we had here in Columbia, South Carolina, that we have on Wednesday nights called Mind Gravy. And during the event, after all the poets were finished, she chose to play a song for us. And the song was called Life's Funny That Way. And I was very impressed by the lyrics of that song. And so she also let us know that she has an album called Let's Plant a Garden, her debut album, Let's Plant a Garden. This young lady has lyrics that just evoke such vivid imagery, and she seems to possess a wisdom that is beyond her age. She plays the violin. I think that's her main instrument. She plays the Appalachian style. She is steeped in traditional folk music, and she's just an incredible musician. And so I'm honored today to have as my guest today Hayley King. Alright, so welcome Hayley to Truth Spoken Here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. I'm honored to have you. So Hayley, would you like to start by telling us how you got started in music, a little bit about your formal training?
Yeah, so I actually started, my love of music started when I was 4 years old. I went to a private school, and when I was there, we were studying the alphabet, and one day we were studying the letter V, and they brought in a violinist to play for us. And I was completely just like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I begged Mom and Dad, I want to play violin. And then finally, when I was 7 years old, they let me start taking lessons. And I mean, the rest is really history. I got interested in Appalachian music probably when I was about 10. I went to a farmer's market with my family and saw a bluegrass fiddle player, Jim Graddock, who eventually became my fiddle teacher. And so I started doing that when I was 10 or 11. And then I got introduced to old time in high school when I was about 15 or 16, I guess. And I got a lot of really good lessons from people like Emily Shadd and Tatiana Hargreaves and Kristen Harris.
Now, when you say old time, what is that? Is that sort of like Americana, maybe?
Old time. Yeah, old time music is very much it's a very dialectal version of fiddle music. A long time ago, when the United States, before it was even the U.S., colonists were coming from lots of different countries in Europe, primarily the British Isles, Wales. So you got Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales, and even a little bit of Germany and France. And then as they were settling in different places in Appalachia, because the topography was so difficult to travel, there were a lot of different pockets of music that kind of evolved differently from each other. And so you have all these very different voicings of fiddle music, but also banjo, guitar, other instruments. But fiddles were very common because they were small and easy to carry. So
Right.
yeah.
So, well, who's some of your, well, we already talked about your early, you can just tell us who were some of your early influences, though.
Yeah. So definitely Jim Braddock. I will say, for my musical influences, a lot of people in a couple of generations before me learned to play by ear by just listening to recordings of very talented, famous bluegrass and old time and just folk musicians. But because I had access to people who could teach me firsthand, a lot of my experience with people like Johnny Gimble or Kenny Baker or Buddy Spiker or all of these bluegrass artists, I kind of got secondhand through them.
Right.
And so my style very much reflects the style of Kristen Harris, who's an old-time fiddler, and a little bit of stuff from Jim Braddock and some other bluegrass players as well.
Now, where did you grow up?
I was born and raised right around Columbia, South Carolina, so definitely not in Appalachia, but I have a lot of family, especially on my mom's side, but also my dad's side too, that come from places like Asheville, Hendersonville, Raleigh, those areas
Okay.
of
Now,
North Carolina.
now, for the uninitiated, those who may not be familiar, let's just say, what is the difference between a fiddle and a violin? Now, I know, of course, but for those who don't know, please tell us. Please tell them.
Yeah. I get this question all the time. So the instrument, a fiddle and a violin, is physically the same instrument. Some people will hear about there being a fiddle bridge that's a little more flat than a classical violin bridge. That doesn't make it a different instrument. What makes it a different instrument is the style that you play in. So classical music uses a lot of sheet music, and everything is arranged in a specific way, and you're supposed to play it in the way that was intended by the writer of the song.
Yes, otherwise it's considered disrespectful to the composer.
Yeah, exactly, yes. And so you have that culture for classical music, which is beautiful in its own right, but then you also have traditional music like bluegrass and old-time Celtic music, all of these different styles that is very much up to the individual musician and how they play a song. Some styles, like bluegrass especially, you don't even have to play any of the same notes that the original song had in it. As long as you follow the general contour of the song, there's a lot of room for creativity and self-expression, which is something that I feel really drawn to about.
So a lot of room for improvisation.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, great. Now, your debut album, Let's Plant a Garden, is excellent and impressive on several levels. The arrangements, lyrical content, and overall musicianship displayed. Please tell us a little bit about how the album evolved and the other musicians involved in that project.
Yeah. So the album actually, I had my undergrad in Moorhead, Kentucky. They have a traditional Appalachian music major there, which is what drew me to that university. And as part of that major, I did a capstone project. And for that, I was supposed to be applying the skills that I had learned for putting together, like hiring band people to play with you and booking a studio and setting up sound equipment and taking the sound equipment and putting it together in tracks. And so that was really cool. But I was only required to make 4 recordings, and they didn't even have to be original. They could be of any song I wanted. But because I started writing songs over the pandemic, I had a couple that I wanted to record, a couple meaning 10. And so I just decided, you know what, I'll do the required amount, and then I'll just record some more by myself that don't require other people's time. And I'll put them together into an album, and I had free access to the studio while I was a student there. And so it was just a really amazing experience, and I got to be so involved with it. It was awesome.
Now, who are some of the other musicians on this album with you?
Yeah, so on a lot of the songs, so 5 of the songs, let me see if I have CD with me here that I can look at. No, maybe not. Okay, well anyway, 5 of the songs, I know Life is Funny Like That, Where Will My Memories Go, what are some of the other ones? The Fisherman's Son, Let's Plant a Garden, and one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. Those 5 were done as a group with some of my mentors and friends who were also majors or some minors in the music program. And we did those in one cut as a live recording. And then
the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, well, I love the feeling of a live recording.
Yes.
It's very organic, and you can hear the in real time. This person is thinking, oh, this note would be so cool here. And the nature of this music too is that, like, I tell them the general feel I want them to have, but I don't write the notes exactly.
Right.
So it is very much each person's, personality coming out in the recording, which I really love. And then the other 5 songs on there are just me. There's a couple that are fiddle tunes, and I'm actually playing banjo behind myself. I recorded those 2 tracks separately and then just stuck them together.
Yeah, because one of the things that really impressed me about the album was the 2 instrumental pieces, Cricket Hill and was that a Brambleberry Pie? Was that it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how involved were you with the arrangements on those pieces?
I wrote them completely. I recorded the fiddle tune first on Brambleberry Pie, and then I played the banjo over it. So I used an audio recording platform called Pro Tools, and so I can record myself through a microphone onto Pro Tools, and then I can play back that recording in headphones while I record on a different instrument into the microphone, and it puts it on a separate track.
Oh, yeah.
So it sounds like there's 2 people playing, but really I'm just playing with myself.
Good old Pro Tools.
Cool. Oh yeah. It's a great platform though.
Now, one of my favorite cuts on the album is The Fisherman's Son. It is a song that tells a great story. Now, what was your inspiration for coming up with such a brilliant song?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I took a songwriting class. It was online over the pandemic, and during that point, like for a music major, having band classes was incredibly difficult over Zoom because you can't really play together in a room because there's so much lag. So we spent a lot of time just talking about songs we wanted to play together once the pandemic was over. And one of the things that really kept me sane during that time when we were online is I was also taking a 1-day-a-week songwriting workshop class. It was just an elective, but it was a very safe space with a very supportive group of people who were also learning to write songs. And I actually didn't manage to write one until the second to last week of the class because I've written poems a little bit here and there, but it's always the same da-dum, 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 and it was a very square, just boxy structure that I could not get away from. And so trying to make it flow and be more lyrical and, more of an elegant sound was very difficult for me. But The Fisherman's Son was one of the first songs I wrote. I want to say it was probably the 3rd song I wrote, but I was in a period of writer's block, and one of the methods that we were using at that point was, okay, take a song that you really like the sound of, and then essentially write a parody to it. Not even a parody, but rewrite words that fit to the same melody, and then take that melody, once you have written words to it, and change the melody. So you have a completely different song than the first one that you started with. And to me, that kind of felt like cheating, but at the same time, it really works. I was listening to Gentle on My Mind by John Hartford.
Love it.
I really liked the conversational aspect of the song. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to try to write a song that is kind of like this, that's very conversational, that isn't focused so much on the musical part, but more the words. And so I didn't follow the exact structure of the song, but that's what I based it off of.
Now, you told us something in my previous conversation with you. You talked about how you read something about you heard something about John Hartford when he was composing that song. What was the story with that? He went to visit a friend's grave, a friend of his died, or something like that.
Yeah. So the people that I took music lessons from and who were some of my mentors when I was at Morehead State were the McLean family, Ruth and Raymond McLean, and they both personally knew John Hartford, which is amazing. And so they had a lot of really cool stories about his life and about things that he said in conversations with them. And one of his philosophies that I've also come to kind of believe in is this concept of songs existing in places. There was a friend of John Hartford's that passed away, and he went to his friend's funeral, and while he was there, he was visiting the grave afterward, and people were leaving, going back to their cars, and then a song popped into his head, and he didn't have anything to write with, so he was like, okay, I'm going to get home, I'm going to write it down first thing, I'll just hold it in my head until I get home. He got home, and he could not remember anything. Couldn't remember what it was about. He couldn't remember any of the words, any of the melody pieces, and it was driving him insane. And so after a long time, he finally, it was a couple days later probably, he drove back to the graveyard, and once he got back to his friend's grave, it just started flowing back, the whole thing, the words, the melody, the phrasing, and he wrote it down in 10 minutes. And I don't remember what the song was. I'd have to ask Raymond what it was, but I definitely think there is something to that.
Because that's thing you were talking about, how you find a song and you kind of copy the melody but then put different words to it, and then you change the melody altogether. That's a very unique approach to songwriting. I never heard that, but talking about as far as the story you're talking about, it's amazing how creativity is sometimes in and of the moment. If you don't put that idea down right then, it's gone forever sometime.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't remember who said this, but there was another artist who believed that songs were like ribbons floating in the wind, and if you didn't reach up and grab it right when it was floating past, it would be gone. And some songs, some ideas are more bold and obvious than other ones, and so it's very much a craft that you have to hone and practice, and the more practice you get, the easier it is to see them.
Yes, because I always talk about all the time with other musicians how I feel like no matter what art it is that you're involved in, whether it be visual art or music or writing, whatever, I think we're just a channel that we're just the vessel that the universe, whatever you want to call it, you don't call it the universe, I choose to call it God, chooses to channel these things through. So I don't think there's any need for any of us to get big-headed, and I think one of the keys to life is to remain humble. So
yeah, that's a concept that I kind of hinted at in my song "Where Will My Memories Go?"
Yes,
because I was just thinking, where do the ribbons come from? They must come from something, because souls and memories, it's all energy. Energy can't be destroyed. It's got to go somewhere.
Yes, one of the concepts of physics. Yes.
Yes.
I talk about that a lot with people. We're discussing stuff like what happens after this life, after we transition or whatever you want to call it. But
yeah.
Yep. So that's funny. Now one of the things that strikes me about your music is like I said, it's just amazing. Like getting back to the fisherman's son. Now you don't have anybody in your family that has an experience at sea or anything like that, fisherman or anything.
I don't. I have no experience with fishermen or the ocean or anything, so I don't really know where that idea came from. I actually wrote that song over the period of about 2 days. I wrote the first the first two verses one day, and then the next day I wrote the next two, which is very unusual for me. Most of the time I'll sit down, and if a song idea comes, I'll write the whole thing in one sitting, because it's a frame of mind that I get in, and once I lose that frame of mind, I can't get back to it.
And I find it all the more amazing. You say that's only about the third song. When you say that's the third song you ever wrote in your life?
Yes, and it's so.
Wow, and
This is
that's
another reason why I think, okay, it's the ribbons. I just grabbed a ribbon. I was lucky because it's funny because there's songs that I wrote after that one that I'm thinking, well, where's the inspiration that I had before? You know, now I have these songs that I've written that are my standard for my songs, and so it's like, what are these ones that I'm writing now? But I've also heard that, you know, even good, really experienced songwriters will write 100 songs and only 3 or 4 of them are good. And so it gives me faith that, okay, you know, one more song closer to writing my next best song.
Now let's talk about your title song, "Let's Plant a Garden." Now
Yeah.
there's an allusion to your grandfather on in that song. Tell us so I guess he was somewhat an inspiration to you. Tell us about your grandfather, how you know the allusions to him in that song.
Yeah, so when I was little, growing up, probably for about 8 years of my life, we lived on this piece of property. It was just about half an acre, but it was the biggest piece of property in our neighborhood, I think, or one of the biggest ones. But we had a garden plot in our backyard, and my grandpa, my mom's dad, grew up on a farm in North Carolina, and so he knew all about tilling the soil, preparing the soil, planting things, how to space out the seeds, how to care for them, fertilizer, all that stuff. And so every April or early May, he would come over and help us till up our soil. We'd amend the soil, and then he would help us plant our vegetable garden, and he would tell us what things could grow together and what things didn't go good together. And I don't know, I just have so many just pure happy memories of that time in my life. And so much, I see so many similarities between gardening and the patience it takes to learn all of that, and life in general, because our life is a garden. We have to cultivate the things that we want to do and we want to be, and we have to weed out the bad stuff. And there's always going to be bad stuff that blows in, it takes root, but you know, you have to keep plucking it out.
And you know, there's a biblical passage that tells you, you know, basically you're going to reap what you sow. So you know, like
Exactly.
you want to sow good seeds, and I think that's part of your lyrics in that song, something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one of the lines that really he was explaining to me in that line about you make your life and you make it good or bad. And
Right.
he didn't actually have that conversation with me, but the kinds of things that he taught us in the
By
garden.
example.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So,
And you're fortunate to still have your grandfather, right?
I am. I'm very lucky. All 4 of my
Yes.
grandparents are still living at this point. My parents were very young when they had me, so
Yeah.
my grandparents are still pretty young too.
Now you also teach music. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, I do. I teach fiddle lessons and violin, and also beginner viola. I've taught some beginner lessons in the past, just to a couple of students. And right now I think I have three or 4 students.
Now you said beginner. I'm sorry to interrupt. You said beginner what now? What's that?
Beginner violin.
Oh, violin. Okay.
Yeah, violin. Right now I'm teaching violin and fiddle, and I'm also set up to where I can teach beginner viola, because I have a 5-string fiddle that I can use to teach viola with.
Okay.
But I don't have any viola students as of now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you.
But it's been really nice so far.
So you also proficient on the viola.
Well, I mean, you play the viola exactly like you play a violin. It's just a
Okay.
little bigger.
Yeah.
So my skills from violin are very, applicable to viola.
Okay.
Reading sheet music, that's the reason I'm not teaching intermediate viola or advanced viola, because reading alto clef is a skill that I have really not, I'm not super great at yet, but
Okay.
it can be easily remedied.
Well, that gives you something to work toward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll never be bored. I always have something to do.
Now, in the future, do you see yourself branching out into other types of music and perhaps collaborating with artists from other genres?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a folk artist, folk music umbrella is so vast and so big. There's so many different types of people, and I think folk music is just the music of the people. You have folk music that is jazzy, and folk music that's more Celtic, and folk music that's almost like rock and roll but not quite, and folk music that's like bluegrass. And so you can't really draw a line at where folk music starts and stops.
Right.
And my own musicianship, I've seen my style change over the course of the years that I have been songwriting now, and that's already it's a stark change. And so it'll be interesting to see what stylistic techniques I will implement, what inspiration I will have over the next decade or several decades of my life.
Yes.
And it's an ever-changing thing. It's a living thing, and that's what I love about folk music in general.
Now, if you could collaborate with any legend of your choice, or it doesn't have to be a legend, just anyone that you, from past to present, living or dead, who would you choose?
That's so hard. There's so many really wonderful artists. I think in terms of songwriting, if I were to try to co-write with someone, I really enjoy the writing style of Cheryl Wheeler and Peter Mayer.
Okay.
And both of them, gosh, if I could have written a song with them, it would be a really, really good song. Really deep song. Existential.
Right.
They have I definitely recommend anyone who's listening, go listen to Cheryl Wheeler and Peter Mayer. They're awesome.
Now, I'm gonna drop something on you. Somebody I want you to check out. I don't know, you may have heard of her. Have you ever heard of Rhiannon Getting?
I have not. No.
Check her out. She's played the band, an African American. They were like a jug band. I think sort of like a jug band. They were called the Carolina
Chocolate Drops?
Yes.
Yes, I do know them. Okay, I'm not really familiar with the individual names, but maybe.
Yeah, but Rihanna is the girl was with them, and she went on solo, and she's like done. She is a matter of fact, I just heard a song by her a couple weeks ago. I think it was. It's called Birmingham Sun. It's about the 4 little girls that got killed in the Birmingham bombing in 1963. But I think Joan Baez did a more famous version of it, but it's written by another guy who done I can't even think of his name now. He was the one that wrote the song. So the song's been around a while, but she is like a fantastic version of that. And she's got some great stuff.
Well, I'll look that up.
Yeah, if you get a chance, check her out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yes. Now, lastly, do you have any advice for aspiring musicians who may be listening?
Yeah, I do. As a songwriter, as a musician, one of the things that is most important to keep in mind is you are your harshest critic. There's nobody else who knows how your song is supposed to go. Nobody else is going to know how the line was supposed to be, or what key you were supposed to play the song in, or what instrumentation was supposed to be between the lines. And as a musician who is constantly growing, constantly changing, you're going to have shining moments, and you're going to have moments where you kind of wish that you could hide behind something. And that's
I've had plenty of those.
And everyone does, and I certainly do. And I forget lines, and I have to make up a line mid-song, and that's still something that I'm working on doing without letting on that I messed up. But, the point of music, for me and for most people that I have met, is it's a way of evoking emotion. It's a way of expressing your emotional self. Music can transcend language. And even if you are not a professional musician, even if you are a professional musician that doesn't feel professional, your music is so valuable because you are the only person on the face of the planet that can put the emotions you are feeling into your music. You are the only person who can play whatever song you're playing the way that you play it.
Yes.
Or if you write your own songs, you are the only person that can write that song.
True.
And it's a gift that you give to the world. So give yourself credit and know that the point is not to be perfect. The point is to share your soul with people.
Yes, because I remember reading something. I don't even know whether it was pertaining to music, but years ago, when I was in high school, maybe a little bit thereafter, talked about how sad world this would be if nobody attempted to do anything unless they were guaranteed they were going to be a genius and succeed at it. It would be a pretty sad world.
It would be. I mean, think about Thomas Edison.
Yes.
How many times did he try to make a light bulb?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yet, he kept trying, and he gave us a light bulb.
All right. Oh.
So, you never know where, even if you write a bunch of songs that really just don't work, but you write one really good one that just touches the hearts of thousands or millions of people, you gave the world something amazing.
And
you never know when that song is going to be.
And speaking of that, there's a guy named, I think his name's Eden Abaz or something like that. He wrote there's only one song of his that I know in this song, but it's a song that's been recorded by countless artists. It's called Nature Boy. Nat King Cole probably had the most famous version of it.
Yeah.
But this guy, if that's the only song that I know of his. Now he may have some. I'm sure does have some other stuff. But if he only wrote that one song, it was enough, because that song was, like I said, been recorded by countless artists, and I perform it often. I perform it at some of my shows sometime. So
yeah.
So it is a gift to the world.
Yeah.
And Hayley, I want to tell you, like I said, meeting you has been a pleasure. Like I said, you've been you've got this. As I stated in my introduction, which you'll hear later, you have a wisdom that that is that's beyond your age and stuff, and you have to hear people talk about people with an old soul. I totally believe sometimes that the ancestors or whatever pass things on to us and stuff. How you taught music being, after how you put it, out there floating and stuff, and you just got to grab onto it or whatever. I totally believe that.
Yeah,
so
I do too.
So anyway, it's been a pleasure to have you. I thank you so much for coming on my show today, and I'll be
absolutely.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Keep interrupting each other. No, it's been a pleasure. I've loved every moment of this. Thank you.
Yes, I'm expecting great things from you, and I just wish you all the best going forward. And I hope to see you out again sometime soon at Mine Graveyard or wherever. And by the way, I mentioned this when I talked to you last time that there's an event on Saturday on Sundays from 3 to 6 at a place called Uncle Festus. That's over there by Todd Moore on Divine Street.
Yeah.
We have open mic on there from 3 to 6. We'd love to get you out there sometime, and I'll be talking with you, give you some more information on that. There's a guy that you should get into that if you want to do that. There's a guy that's over there named Greg Sard. Greg would love to have you come out there one Sunday, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Please send me any information, and
I sure will.
That sounds great.
All right, Hayley. Well, this has been a blast, and thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Take care.
So once again, I want to thank my guest, Hayley King, for coming on the show. Now, I'm going to end the show by playing one of her songs. This is called Brambleberry Pie. And I done this with her permission. I want to thank her once again for allowing me to use the song. So maybe this will convince some of you to check out her album. Once again, the album is called Let's Plant a Garden, Hayley King. Without further ado, this is Brambleberry Pie.